Well, there's Florence Kiplagat, Tim, and that is a wonderful, wonderful piece of running. She took over the lead very early in the race and looks very, very comfortable indeed.
Yeah,
we'll have a look at second place very shortly with Wanjiko, but there is Wanjiko, but it's a big lead, Tim.
Well, she's torn them apart, Stuart. I mean, she's, you know, after that first mile, which was a very cautious 5:26, they've gone 5:09, 5:08, 5:08, 5:05. Those are the splits for the leader, Florence Kiplagat.
So we know the first two, but this is the battle for third. Charlotte Purdue is there. That's very, very good indeed.
This is her first race, the little lass there in the pink. Her first race in 14 months, can you believe? She's had a dreadful time. She got a stress fracture in one of her knees, in the patella, the kneecap, in October last year, and then 2 stress fractures in her back in February, and this is her first very, very cautious step back into competition.
Well, Nowakowska of Poland it is in third in that group there. Well, moments of enjoyment at this early stage, and the masses making their way. Some will have to walk, some will be running for the very first time, some will be decent club runners, because there is a club competition here today. Down to 3, the defending champion versus the Birmingham champion, through versus a man who has proved himself sub 27 minutes over 10,000 on the track in Emmanuel Bett. Bett, very, very fine athlete. Now, he's the unknown quantity in terms of this race. Yeko, until last week, was a pretty unknown quantity, but we know about Makoko, the Great South winner from last year. His best half marathon this year, though, 62:45. That was in September. He was 4th in the Manchester 10K, 28:12, just to give you a little bit of background on him for this season. Well, Florence Kiplagat, absolutely superb, still just drifting along, totally and utterly deep in concentration. We often ask what athletes think about here, but it's a deep concentration. There are the splits in that race.
Yeah, 5:04, 5:08, Stuart. She's really churning through these miles very, very quickly indeed. I mean, you're looking here at something like 51 and a half minute tempo.
There's so much wind here. And,
yeah, I've got them at about 28 minutes exactly there at 6 miles, Stuart.
Yeah.
So we can see what sort of tempo they're on there. 28 minutes at 6 miles means they're on for around 46, 45, something like that, under 47 minutes.
That is very, very good in these conditions. It really is. Because I guess the group behind is the sort of pace that we expected the race to be running in the conditions, but this is real class. Yeko has a lot of work to do now, but if he does it slowly but surely, well, who knows? It's that last 2 miles, I keep saying it, but so many people refer to it when they run this race that I think it's worth repeating. Well, this down the South Sea Esplanade, heading towards the South Parade Pier, and the final stage. You can see that she's really having to work very hard, isn't she? You can see that, almost having to lean into it.
Much shorter stride length, Stuart, isn't it? Look, she really is. Look at the grasses there to the left of picture, blowing so viciously. She's struggling here, there's no doubt about it. Dropping that left arm again. She's built up a huge cushion behind her to the chasing group, so she knows she's got this race in the bag, but there is absolutely no shelter whatsoever from the teeth of the gale that she's running into here.
Well, for the masses, they will turn their attention to the band, but for the rest, oh, look at this. Some of the attire that we see on these races. And look at this, well, is that a little gap opening up? It is indeed, and Bett is really piling on the pressure at this stage.
And that little glance over his left shoulder, Stuart, he'll have seen that he's got that 6 or 8 yard gap back to that yellow vest, and that's very, very important when you're leading and you've been working hard for a few minutes to try and break somebody, to try and break their will and get the gap, and then you get it. You get that little surge of adrenaline, you know you've done it, it's really reinforcing, and you then want to push on for the next few minutes and try and really drive it home and get that gap to widen. But Makoko is so stubborn an individual. Let's just see how well he can hang on to Bett here.
And here comes Charlotte Purdue on the near side. The slight thing. Remember, she's going close to the wall now. She knows this course well, does Charlotte?
Well, the funny thing, she's so tiny, Stuart. She's sheltered by all but her head.
Totally and utterly sheltered by that wall, and that's very sensible. And she's really running very well. I spoke to her this morning. She said, "Look," she said, "this is my first race of the season. I want to run it well. I feel I'm fit after all the injury problems she's had." And this would be absolutely superb to come into this position in this race. And Wenjiko certainly was finding life very difficult. There she is, and I tell you what, she could get caught because she is really struggling up that hill, Wenjiko.
And I don't know why Florence Kiplegat's bothering to check over her shoulder. She's got a massive gap. I shouldn't think there's anybody in sight as she approaches the finish now. It has been a truly dominant run.
Very, very good final stage down that esplanade. That's there your mile splits. The last one 4:32. And this is actually the 9th and 10th will be interesting to see.
Yeah, I'm trying to shift them now.
The fastest 4:24. That's quick. 7th mile is very quick.
Van Aert will have had the wind right behind them for those who are 7th and 8th miles. You're at 4:24, 4:32. When you're looking at splits with that sort of speed, you're heading for something like 46 minutes flat. But this will be very telling. And no wonder Betts had a little glance over his shoulder here, because this is a horrible situation to be in. This is like being a track relay race of 4x400 and being given the back about 1 metre ahead of somebody on the last leg, because he's got, what, about 10, 15 metres there, maybe 20 metres on Mokoka, who is such a tough guy, as we've been saying, and yet they've got a little way to go yet. 52.5 minutes on the clock there. At times we thought she might push down towards this sort of finishing time, but this last couple of miles, the effect has been much greater than I thought it would be. I mean, to go from running her previous couple of miles, let's see, her 8th mile was, her 6th mile 5:22, her 7th mile 5:04, and she'd had several miles of that sort of speed. Her 8th mile 5:08, and then 6:04 for that 9th mile. It made pretty much a minute's difference. It slowed her by a minute on that 9th mile, and this 10th mile might be very similar.
You can see how stride has shortened significantly as we approach the end of this race. A race that turned very early into a demonstration of real class long-distance road running.
It did indeed, yes, and she's acknowledging the applause of the crowd here with a couple of hundred yards to go as Florence Kiplegat, she was waving to the crowds at 5 or 6 miles, quite bizarrely, but enjoying herself in the sunshine then with the wind at her back. Now here she comes towards the line to win this 24th edition of the Bupa Great South Run here in Portsmouth. It has been a fabulous run for the Berlin Marathon champion. 4 weeks later, she's the winner here in Portsmouth. The time not particularly quick, but bearing in mind the conditions, this is truly world class, and that is a huge gap behind her there. 53.53 unofficially, that winning time for Florence Kiplegat on one of the windiest days I think we've ever seen here.
There's the 3rd place, Thomas Ayeko. You can see the wind on his athletics vest there, and look at the side, the grass on the side of the road. It's absolutely horizontal, and that tells you how difficult this has been. There, the top 2 on the right of the shot.
I reckon that gap is growing, Stuart. Bet there to the top, and at the bottom, Mokoka, the man who is the defending champion, will be champion just for a couple more minutes. He's not going to close that now, and in fact, as we look, you can see Bet moving away. The taller, thinner figure of the Kenyan out in front, ahead of the South African Mokoka, is clearly making better of this win.
Straight in 2nd place. Who's just running across to the side of the road, trying to get as much cover as possible. So it's
29 years old, making a debut here. She'll remember this one, that's for sure. Look at the time. 2nd place in 56 minutes. Many, many years since it's been that slow on the clock. 2nd place at the Great South Run. Purdue there in 3rd place. She's had a fabulous run. She has taken some useful scalps here. And after such a long break away from racing under the tutelage of Mick Woods, who does so well with that squad up in Aldershot, she will be so pleased to be back racing again, to have got onto the rostrum at this Great South Run. She really will. Wanjiku then coming home for second place. She has managed to stay clear. It's going to be a Kenyan 1-2 here in Portsmouth. Winning time 53.53 unofficially. She's still some way down on that. Almost 3 minutes down there. For second place is Pauline Wanjiku, the Bath Half Marathon winner back in March. Second place in Portsmouth today. 2 minutes 50 down. And there is Charlotte Purdue. Well done. Brilliant stuff. She is back, and back with a bang, the 22-year-old. There's no doubt about it. After a series of stress fractures and a very, very difficult year, which would have tested any athlete's mettle, she, no wonder she's smiling there. Absolutely exhausted, but delighted at the same time. Mokoka's had a marvellous year, Stuart. You know, he won the World University Games in Kazan earlier in the summer, and then he set personal best at 800 and 5,000 metres, and he is the defending champion. And how impressive was he last year in 46.40 to take this title? So that underlines the quality of this run from Emmanuel Bett. He's had to work for it, though. That grimace has been there for some time.
Yeah, this was about racing, really, not about the clock, although we do mention that to give the statisticians amongst you a clue as to how fast they're running, particularly when you've got one man out in front. But 200 metres, less than 200 metres to go for Emmanuel Bett of Kenya as he heads down towards the finish to receive the accolade of this crowd, followed by Stephen Makoko. Another little glance over his shoulder, but whilst he did make an attempt in that final run down the Eastway Esplanade as they approached the South Sea Esplanade, went ahead, but then all of a sudden Emmanuel Bett said, no, I'm not having that, and went away again. So this, for the defending champion to come into second place, is another formidable race indeed. And Emmanuel Bett is the race winner, and just outside 48 minutes, 48.03 for Emmanuel Bett in this Bupa Great South Run, the 24th running of it. And the rest now will follow. Stephen Makoko will soon be crossing the line. And then after here he comes now, and following him will be Thomas Ayeko. Those three. Stephen Makoko second this year, first last. 19 seconds he lost on that last part of the race. And that just shows how very, very strong Emmanuel Bett was in the final stages. Well, let's have a look. Emmanuel Bett, 48.03. Makoko, 48.22. Ayeko, 49.08. And there are the rest. Andy Vernon, the top Briton, 49.21 in fourth. Chris Thompson down in sixth place.
Today this course was nice, though it was very windy. Yeah, and it became tougher for me. Yeah.
You certainly had lots of support on the way round, and coming up the beach here, you had someone on the other side running beside you. Was that helping you along? It
contributed because the way I saw he was happy of me and telling me, keep it up moving, so it was an encouragement for me.
And confirmation of that win for Florence Kiplagat. It was indeed 53.53. Wanjiku there, 50 seconds down. Charlotte Purdue, her first race for 14 months. Brilliant run by the 22-year-old Briton in third place, 56.57. Stay ahead of Nowokoska of Poland.
Was it difficult out there with the wind?
Wow, absolutely very, very terrible, especially the last 2 miles. No, I was trying to push, but nothing. So I was looking for the finishing line. You know, I've been competing, but I've never seen such a strong win like this one.
A great men's race there. What a battle between Emmanuel Bett of Kenya and the defending champion Stephen Makoko of South Africa. And a fine demonstration in the women's race too from Florence Kiplagat. Once again, it was a very good day for Kenya. Keep up to date though with the Great Run series on greatrun.org. From Tim Hutchings and Stuart Story in Portsmouth, goodbye.